Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I would love to share with you a very sweet story that I read on Archive of Her Own by Cute Newt, who graciously agreed to allow me to create an ASMR video from this. Their story is called Footprints in the Snow, and it is a delicious, cozy, fantastic beasts and where to find them fanfiction. If you can hear any rain in the background, I'm very sorry, and I hope it is more of a soothing sound than an annoyance. Without further ado, here is Footprints in the Snow. It has been 2.5 years since Tina became Mrs. Scamander, and now Tina is 6 months pregnant with their first child. It's almost Christmas, and the grassy surroundings in Dorset are slowly becoming covered with a fresh blanket of snow. Newt stares out of the window whilst his pregnant wife naps by the fire. He is happy. 2:30 p.m. Each individual snowflake that settles down against the iced-over window pane gets an observation from Mr. Scamander, who's sitting comfortably against the window seat in the living room and watching the world go by out of the front of the house. Tina is fast asleep on the sofa, a blanket tucked around her, and the book that she'd fallen asleep reading is now safely on the coffee table, with her glasses atop of the pages. The magizoologist turns to look at her and smiles. He wonders if they're going to have a daughter or a son in 3 months' time. Will they like his creatures? Will they be a witch or a wizard? Will they talk with an American accent or a British one like his own? Whilst he's engulfed in his own thoughts of the future, the wizard barely notices the women before him start to stir and then wake. "What are you thinking about, Scamander?" she asks, her voice still laced with the huskiness of sleep. He smiles endearingly towards her and gets to his feet. "I'm thinking of our future generation, Mrs. Scamander." Newt smirks slightly, taking a seat beside her. "Well, I think she's eager to make an appearance," Tina says softly, resting her palm against her bump. She looks up toward her husband, whose eyes seem to be twinkling a little. How do you know it's a girl?" the man asks, his voice barely a whisper as they gaze at one another, a look that's still full of love. Tina smiles. "I dunno, I just got a feelin'," she explains. He nods, shuffling closer. Newt looks down at the bump and then back up at her again. "Are we settled on a name yet?" "You aren't naming our first child. I already told you this," Tina chuckles, and Newt's eyes widen slightly. "You didn't say first child before," he trails off, the thought of having more children with his true love overwhelming him with a handful of different emotions all at once. The woman beside him gently chews against her bottom lip, quietly hoping that he isn't upset. "Well, I still like Esther for the first, for my mom," she tells him, a small smile upon her lips. Newt looks back up at her and nods. "I think that would be a lovely name, and your mother would be so proud," he tells her, moving his hand upward to tuck some of her hair behind her ear. She smiles a teary-eyed smile and leans into his touch. 3 more months and we can meet her, Tina mumbles against his lips as they kiss. When they break apart again, she rests her hands against her stomach and starts to grin. The brunette takes Newt's hand and places it there so that he can feel their child kicking. I think someone's getting impatient, he laughs. It's not long now. Tina looks down at her bump. Not long now. 1 year later. This time, rather than 2 people in the house prior to Christmas, it's 3. And it isn't just Newt watching the snow fall. There's now another small person standing on the window seat beside him and babbling excitedly as everything outside is slowly becoming covered in glittering flakes of snow. "Isn't that beautiful, Esther?" the wizard says, holding his palm against her back to ensure that the 9-month-old doesn't fall backwards. Tina enters the room moments later, carrying coats and other winter clothes. She smiles towards the pair who are watching out the window and nears closer to them. "Should we go out in the snow, Essie?" the mother asks softly, crouching down in front of her to begin dressing her in winter clothing. Their baby is now rather adorably dressed in her winter coat, long and red, courtesy of Queenie, of course, and her little bobble hat that Newt knitted about a month before she was born fits her perfectly now. "Look at you," Tina giggles, rushing over to the mantelpiece to grab her camera. The wizard buttons up his own coat and wraps his around his neck, the Hufflepuff colors matching his daughter's hat. "Smile!" Tina exclaims, and he crouches beside Esther. The baby waves her arms and grins to reveal her small set of teeth, and Newt hugs her close with a smile on his face that years ago didn't really exist. The family then head outside into the garden with a sledge, Tina carrying Esther safely on her hip. They spend only a short while outside so as to not let their daughter get too cold, but it's filled with laughter and memories in the making. After getting inside and warming themselves up again, Esther is now fast asleep against her dad's chest as he sits upon the couch, reading a book in one hand and gently holding his daughter with the other. Tina snaps a subtle photo, finding it one of the sweetest things in her world to observe. She sits down beside them as quietly as she can, giggling at how Newt's reading glasses are almost all the way down at the end of his nose, but he's too sleepy to notice. She reaches across to kiss his cheek, then gets up and removes the book from his hand. He smiles up at her, removing his glasses and letting his wife pick Esther up and carry her upstairs to her crib. This is the happiest they've ever been. The Kowalski family will be arriving at the weekend. Queenie and Jacob have a 2-year-old daughter named Lily, and they're all spending Christmas together in a few weeks' time. It's going to be extremely noisy and chaotic, but it's family. Newt stretches in his seat and spends another moment thinking about how lucky he is before Tina comes back into the room. She's still asleep, the brunette tells him, wandering over to the mantelpiece. There's a framed photo centerpiece of the new family, Tina and Newt holding Esther in the middle on the day she turned 6 months old. The baby looks quite a lot like Tina already, with the same colored hair and a little tuft atop of her head. dark brown eyes that hold tiny flecks of green when the sunlight shines. And there's a few freckles across her nose that she clearly gets from her dad. In the photo, the parents are laughing together, and Esther is smiling in the loveliest way. Queenie took the photo, and it was a beautiful afternoon in September. The families had gone out for a walk in the woods, and Newt released a fairy that he had been nursing back to health. "Hey, Newt," the woman says, turning away from the photo and towards her husband instead. He looks up at her, their gazes meeting together to signify that she has his attention. "Let's have another baby." Dina grins.